locked on to Hans Olsen and Scotty G. That's
right. Yeah!
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. All right, joining us now from San Antonio, Bryan Fischer, Sports Illustrated staff writer covering college football and basketball, and one of our favorite dudes that we have on the show. Bryan, how you doing, man?
Hey, Bryan.
Well, it's always great to be here in the state of Texas, but and especially ahead of a big night in basketball. But it is a little bit of a disassociation for me sitting around watching a court hearing that is potentially going to change this whole enterprise. So it's kind of a weird day. I got to admit.
Are we getting the House thing settled today? What's the process like?
We are not getting that settled today. So that was kind of one of the biggest things that Judge Claudia Wilken, who has been involved in a lot of these cases against the NCAA, has for really going on 15 years now. That was kind of one of the first big things that she announced right away, was that she would not be ruling from the bench today. So that is a big thing, I think, for everybody. I think everybody kind of expected that coming in, but to hear that from her, reconfirming that it will be another couple of weeks, maybe even another month or two before we actually get some resolution on this, is probably the biggest news out of this. Obviously, there's a lot of people objecting, a lot of people speaking out against the terms of the settlement or specific parts. So we'll ultimately see how that impacts her decision. You can never really read too much into these things, but I think that was kind of the biggest news for both the folks in the NCAA's offices as well as those at the power conferences, is that no resolution expected today, but we maybe get a little sense in terms of where she's leaning and ultimately what we're looking for in the near future here.
Well, and of course that news would help people understand where that money's coming from and how it's distributed. And I'm interested, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but and I don't know if we even have exact numbers. Florida and Houston in the championship game tonight, where do they fall on the NIL payment list?
Well, I don't know in terms of especially these basketball programs, but it's going to be very interesting to see, I think, shaking out in terms of a lot of these schools where they are prioritizing sports. Even there, in Salt Lake with Utah in particular, that's a school that Mark Harlan has openly talked about, especially supporting a very good gymnastics program. There's others like Penn State wrestling that are going to get involved in a lot of the revenue sharing payments. So there's certainly Olympic sports, sports are across the country that are going to be involved in that. But, the vast majority of the money, essentially, of that kind of capped $20.5 million starting this fall is going to go towards football and men's basketball players. And obviously that's going to be the case at schools like Florida and Houston tonight. And moving forward, all the Power 5 schools are probably going to be, right around, I think, the same figures. Ultimately, I think there's going to be a little bit of a market consensus, if you will, before things kind of start to get a little bit out of whack moving forward. But, the bottom line is that what's really going to vary, and I think you can even kind of see it in these programs tonight, is kind of how much is that true NIL, if you will, those deals that those kids are going to get from your local car dealerships, from your, boosters and their collectives. How much is that going to be able to supplement it? And it's going to vary, I think, quite a bit amongst those, power conference schools that are going to opt into the revenue sharing. Yeah, it's great that, if you're an athlete at Wake Forest, you might be getting something now, directly from the school starting this fall. But I think it's those Ohio States, those Floridas, those other power programs that are taking things even more seriously, that you're going to be able to go over the top. That's where things kind of get interesting moving forward.
So the fact that Cooper Flagg is not playing in a national championship is a little bit surprising, but the way that it happened with that meltdown down the stretch, and I know that a lot of people are going to point at the call, but ultimately Duke got themselves in a mess, and all of a sudden Houston took advantage. Was it more Houston or was it more Duke that led to that reversal of fortune for in that game?
Well, I really don't want to take anything away from Houston, and I think Kelvin Stephens kind of even spoke to it a little bit in terms of just how much he kept trusting his guys to keep playing how they were playing. He took some time out certainly down the stretch here or there, but it wasn't a concerted effort of like, hey, we're going to go out there and we're going to full court press them for the last 5 minutes. They just kind of kept chipping away, and I honestly think it really just more of a case of Duke choking it away. I mean, just not only where the lead was, but just how they played. turnovers on the inbounds plays, just the missed shots down the stretch, making one field goal in the final 10.5 minutes. I mean, that's unheard of, on a normal game of college basketball, especially given how, offensively potent Duke was this entire season. But to have it happen in the Final Four with a lead like that, to just let it really slip out of your hands, I think that more than anything goes on John Shire's plate. To be honest, he's been pretty active in terms of calling out sets, making sure the guys are kind of getting into the rhythm offensively. But they just never really were able to kind of find that groove and knock down really just a shot or two. You go on a 9-0 run in the final 30 seconds. I mean, that's just kind of crazy to give up. And it's not like the kids weren't trying or anything like that, but it's just they were not prepared, to face that amount of pressure. And as it kept building, you definitely kind of thought about all their games that they played this year. And, they were bailed out in the ACC tournament, by that, inbounds call. And that kind of escaped them blowing that 24-point lead to North Carolina, in Charlotte a couple of weeks ago. But, otherwise they really haven't played a lot of close games. And I think you kind of saw that when they started to get tight going into that game, and credit to Houston, but I think it's definitely much more that Duke ended up blowing it last night.
I want to talk a little bit about Walter Clayton and if he can keep up this hot streak. For those out there that don't know, Walter Clayton is a senior 6'3" guard with Florida, and his numbers have been incredible. 23 points out of the gates. He had 23 in the Sweet 16, put up 30 in the Final Four against Texas Tech, had 34 in the Final Four against Auburn. He's doing it efficiently. He was 11 of 18 against Auburn, 5 of 8 from 3. Can Walter Clayton keep up this insane run that he's on?
I think so. It'll definitely be tougher. Houston, statistically, you look at the metrics. I mean, this is one of the best defenses, in the country this year. And certainly from an efficiency standpoint, they showed that down the stretch there against Duke. But he's going to have his work cut out for him. But if you could trust anybody right now to make a shot, I think Walter Clayton Jr. might be tops on the list right now. I mean, he just, especially those final 5 minutes of the second half, he just flips that switch, I mean, you're going to probably put this performance, if he ends up getting it done tonight at the Alamo Dome, you might want to put this up there, with Steph Curry and Carmelo in terms of magical tournament runs, because that's just how good he's been. He's terrific, especially from outside the 3-point line. He's terrific in terms of drawing in defenses and getting some of his other guys, shots. And it's just been fascinating to see him, kind of flip that switch, and you can kind of sense it on the sidelines too. In terms of his teammates understanding, he's in that zone. Let's get him the ball. Let's screen high up, and so we can get him some open looks. And he's just phenomenal. And I think this is going to be one of those all-time tournament runs if he ends up cutting down the nets on tonight. And rightfully so. I mean, he's not just a first-team All-American, but he's shining brightest when you have to in March Madness.
So we have his name's Tim Lacombe. He was an assistant at BYU on their coaching staff for a long time. And when Todd Golden got the job at Florida, he jumped on that immediately and said, watch out for this guy. He's really, really good. And we're like, okay, all right, fine, whatever, But we found out pretty quickly he knew what he was talking about, because this guy has been fantastic. So you'll set a record tonight, either the youngest coach winning a national championship or the oldest coach winning a national championship. It's kind of interesting seeing two guys at different ends of their coaching careers going at it tonight.
Yeah, it is, and I think it's interesting, too. I mean, given the issues that both really had, at the beginning of the season, in the case of Todd Golden, certainly surrounding a Title IX investigation that he had to deal with his administration before ultimately getting cleared. Obviously, with Kelvin Sampson, his history with the NCAA has been probably a well worn out story at this point. But he's done a terrific job there, really resuscitating that Houston program. I mean, you got to understand that they were outside of the Phi Slamma Jamma Jays. I mean, that just nothing was positive in terms of the momentum there when he took over. Just the attitude around town there in Houston. I know got a lot of quite a number of family members in town, and they, the the Cougars were just not on anybody's radar. And so he's done a terrific job in terms of breathing life. And I think just a fascinating kind of dichotomy in terms of how you go about program building, how you go about developing internally. In the case of Kelvin Sampson, obviously Todd Golden, he's used the portal. He's done a terrific job in terms of finding hidden gems. My colleague Kevin Sweeney on SI.com wrote about him finding Thomas Haw, and like everybody was kind of doubting that he was going to be a player. Well, he ends up being a terrific component for this title chasing team tonight, going into tonight. So it is fascinating to kind of see that old versus young, the generational divide. But the bottom line is for both coaches involved in this one, they're terrific at what they do, and that's going to matter a lot going into this game where legacies are made. And I think that for Kelvin Sampson, that means certainly cementing one, not only as the oldest coach to win a title, but to do it after all these years, really chipping and clawing away and proving that he is one of the best X's and O's coaches, best program builders over the country. And I think the same goes for Todd Golden, even though he's on a different trajectory at the beginning of his career. The fact is, he came into this tournament without a win to his name, and now he's really 40 minutes away from winning a national title, and that's a pretty special, pretty stark rise for one of the stars in coaching right now.
How many bragging rights, or how much bragging rights do you get if Houston wins this game over the SEC? Do they stomp around and say the Big 12 was underrated and people have overlooked it, and or is it just Houston, you win, now go away? But I'm just curious, like how much bargaining and bragging rights do you get from a win like this for a conference?
Well, I think for both conferences, and I've spoken with a lot of the officials in both leagues, not only just this week, but over the last couple of weeks. And I think they really want to cement one of the best years in both of their leagues, with the title. The validation that it comes from that externally, I think is going to be huge. I think you're going to see both conference offices, really get behind the winner in this one and, lay some claims, certainly. And I think in the case of the SEC, rightfully so, with the number of teams that got selected, with the metrics, with all, really just you just had to open your eyes to watch the SEC basketball this year. They would find this extremely validating. Now, I think if you asked Brett Yormark or anybody in the Big 12, they would say the same. And in terms of how much of a grind the Big 12 is, and I think Kelvin Sampson has kind of noted that as well a couple of times when he's met with the media. He mentioned BYU's length, and when going up against Duke, he mentioned the style of teams that he's played. Through the conference play, how that prepared them to go into this tournament and take on and ultimately beat a lot of the teams that they had played. So I think both conferences are certainly going to puff their chest, and you're going to hear it very loudly, very proudly, and very probably for the next probably until the tip off of this fall of the next season about really cementing this year as one of the great years in either the Big 12 or the SEC. I would imagine that's going to still be the case, depending on the loser as well. But the winner is going to have that extra cherry on top, and I think externally that validation is going to carry over, especially amongst your normal everyday fans who maybe are not following each of the conference seasons as closely as probably they are the tournament.
So, what are your keys in this one tonight? What are you looking for?
Oh, who's going to control the pace? I think if Florida can get out and run and certainly get some of those easy baskets that Duke didn't seem to be able to down the stretch, not really get into that grinded out affair that Houston would love to play. I think that the pacing in this one is going to determine the ultimate winner. I mean, Kelvin Sampson kind of mentioned it late into the night on Saturday. He didn't think that his team could win a game played in the upper 70s and into the 80s against Duke, and I think that applies here with Florida as well. If this is a team where Walter Clayton Jr. is launching for three and playing as efficiently as he is, if he's got Elijah Martin throwing down dunks like he did on Saturday, that's probably not a pace that Houston's going to be very comfortable with in terms of winning this game. And so that to me is going to be the thing, especially in those kind of first 5 or 10 minutes coming out of halftime after you've made your adjustments. Who is really going to kind of take control of this game and take control of that pace? Because Florida could be liable to kind of run away with it if they're able to push things and make it much more of an up and down game than Houston would like.
Hey, Bryan, last thing for me. We've been waiting on an announcement here in the state of Utah from Yegor Damon and his potential return or his entry into the NBA. And You being someone that's studied a lot of college basketball, that understands draft and draft lotteries and where players could potentially fall, it seems Yegor is going to fall inside the 14. What do you think? On a guy like Yegor, what do you think about his return or his entrance into the NBA?
Well, I think it's going to be a fascinating kind of decision. Obviously, there's a tremendous amount of interest, in the program going into next year with AJ Devonta coming in and all the hoopla, really, making it and showing out well, in terms of getting to the Sweet 16. I mean, that's a big thing for the program. I would be curious. I would expect more than anything he's going to end up putting his name in the draft, and at least going through that process. There's really no reason not to. I think it's going to be really ultimately impactful for a lot of these kids too. Just kind of see the draft lottery order, see where you might end up being placed. And I think it is kind of a lighter year, especially, kind of in the middle tier of the lottery, that I think it's going to be very intriguing for a lot of teams. Given his size, given his ability, I know he's still kind of scratching the surface in terms of his ultimate refined player that he could be at the next level. So, there's an understanding that he could come back. But I think for the most part, he's probably going to end up testing the process. My guess is some team's going to just fall in love with his size and his ability, even though he's not quite ready-made to make for an NBA team right away. But that's the beauty of the draft. I think everybody's going to see things a little bit different, but I would expect more than anything, he's going to go through the process, probably learn a little bit more in terms of where he can ultimately get picked, and then that will inform his decision coming back. But there's no doubt in my mind he's definitely an intriguing prospect. Was just talking with another coach the other day about him, and he said that he's going to be one of those guys that I think those NBA scouts, once they kind of get around him, see what he can do, what he can do, kind of what that upper tier, that ceiling that he brings. I think a lot of NBA teams are going to be certainly eyeing him to make it to the draft.
Well, Bryan, usually when we're talking to you, we're talking about college football. So I'd be remiss if we didn't bring up a little football in some regard. Is it pretty much a foregone conclusion Cam Ward will be the first quarterback off the board?
Yeah, it is funny. I was just having a conversation later last week before getting to San Antonio about our NFL draft issue at Sports Illustrated and how it's coming out at the end of the month. And I'm like, oh yeah, that big thing that everybody is really interested in. That will be certainly some fun in Green Bay. And I think coming out of the combine, it certainly sounded like that direction. We were moving in that direction, but I think it really has solidified these last couple of weeks that unless somebody just makes a overwhelming offer to the Tennessee Titans, that organization, that franchise seems extremely comfortable making Cam Ward the number one pick. They seem extremely comfortable making him that face of that franchise. And really, it's not only a glaring need that they have, there at the quarterback position. I think they're extremely comfortable in terms of him being that guy at quarterback, for them. And once you kind of come around to that viewpoint, and when you say, all right, he's our guy, and you don't want to go with a kind of that veteran bridge option, and maybe the trade market hasn't shaken out just like you want. I think all signs are pointing towards Cam Ward going number one, and then that's really kind of when the draft starts to get really interesting there in Green Bay at the end of the month. Okay,
if I were to make an NFL team called the Bryan Fischers, where are you drafting Shedeur?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it just depends on need. You look at Cleveland. I think he's, Shedeur Sanders has a tremendously high floor, I think, as a prospect. I think he's probably the most ready to play in terms of all the quarterbacks in the draft this year. If you want to, take a risk a little bit in terms of the upside of a Jackson Dart or even a Cam Ward, sure, that's definitely there. But are you surrounding them with the right tools to succeed? And I think, Shedeur has the ability to kind of thrive in any environment. So whether that is certainly two there to Cleveland. I know he's certainly been scouted heavily in terms of the Giants, and maybe he is an option there, to come in after Russell Wilson. But honestly, I think he's probably the linchpin of that draft pick of really the first round early on, because if he doesn't end up going 2 or 3, now you're probably talking about sliding maybe down into New Orleans. Maybe it's even further than that. So he's going to be a very interesting test case. But in terms of my personal evaluation, I've certainly seen him a lot over the years. And to me, he's the most ready to play right away. Probably not the ceiling that some of these teams might want if you're, especially in the AFC nowadays, and you got to go against a Patrick Mahomes or you got to go against Josh Allen in the playoffs in order to get to the Super Bowl. Yeah, it might be a little bit of a tougher sell. in terms of what he brings to the table and really being able to trade throws with some of those guys. But, if you're in the NFC, I think he offers a tremendous value in terms of being able to go in there right away, win the job, not really worry about all the issues with the media. He's going to be fine with that. I think he's a very intriguing prospect in that case. And I think he has solidified himself as probably that number 2 quarterback off the board. And we'll kind of see ultimately where that ends up putting him in the draft, given where those quarterback needy teams are and ultimately where they're at in the first round right now.
All right, so one final question for the GM of the Fighting Bryan Fishers. You are looking for a running back. Is Ashton Jeanty worth a rare first-round pick at running back, or do you feel like you can still get good value and use your first-round pick for somewhere else and then get a running back later in the draft?
Well, he absolutely is, and that's not just from an evaluation standpoint. Spent some time for a draft feature around him, a couple weeks ago, and great kid. He just brings so much to the table, and I think it is rare that you talk about a guy earning that kind of top 10, not only a first round pick nowadays, but earning kind of a top 10 mantle. And I think when you evaluate him, if you kind of throw out all the talk about value of running backs, that sort of thing, there's no doubt in my mind and in the minds of many evaluators and many scouts, front office folks, whoever you might want to even ask, coaches even, he is kind of one of the 5 or 6 best players in this draft. Now, ultimately, where that ends up getting him in the first round, I think is going to be interesting, and I think that is kind of part of the other intrigue with this first round in Green Bay this year is where he could ultimately end up going. But to me, the thing about Gentry is who are you getting him with? If you have that second round draft pick and it is a terrific year for running backs, are you able to get somebody else of maybe equal caliber in the second round? Probably not, but it might be close enough to where you say, all right, well, maybe I want to go get a Tetron McMillan. Maybe I want to go get a pass rusher. Maybe I want to go get a linebacker or somebody else that I know can also impact my team in the first round, knowing I still have value there in the second round. So that's probably going to be his biggest issue, I think, going into this draft is not just his overall talent. I think everybody would sign up for that right away. It's just, what are you giving up to take him in the first round versus coming back around in the second round to get a better player? So it's going to be fascinating to see where he goes, but he is definitely a difference maker, and you start to pencil him in places, not just Las Vegas, which I know he's been connected to quite a bit, but certainly there in Chicago. I know he's been mocked to the Bears quite a bit, given Ben Johnson's preference for running backs and having 2 guys, especially in the backfield. He would be a dynamic weapon in that kind of offense. It just, you look up and down that list of teams, he can go just about anywhere and have a big impact on the field. And I would imagine that's going to be a conversation that a lot of front offices are going to have, come the draft in Green Bay.
Well, we appreciate your time as always. We've kept you way too long. Enjoy San Antonio. Enjoy the game tonight, and look forward to catching up with you again here soon.
Great stuff, Bryan.
Absolutely. Good to be on with you guys.
There's the best. Bryan Fischer, Sports Illustrated, college football, college basketball, you name it. The dude can cover it. It's also becoming a legal expert with the house thing. We thought we might get it settled today. Nope.
No.
We're going to wait a couple weeks or a couple months. Who knows?
Yeah, kick that can down the road. Why make sense of anything?
Yeah, why deal with it now?
When I brought him on, he's like, oh, my brain is fried right now, trying to figure out all this legal minutia.
Yeah, I'll bet.
That's not why he got into this business.
Can we just get a Houston win so we can put the SEC to bed? Talk about the Big 12 a little bit. It'd be really nice to see that win.
Yeah, I care more about the SEC losing than I do the Big 12 winning.
Yeah, either way, just don't let Florida win.
No.
I think everybody's rooting for Houston tonight.
Yeah. All right, Dave's joining us now. Dave, you team Houston tonight too?
What's in your bracket? I know you took the 4 number 1s to your Final Four.
I did. This is the first year I've ever taken all 4 number 1s to the final, and I planted a big flag on my bracket. I had Duke going.
Oh.
Yeah. I had a lot of hope in Cooper.
A literal Cooper flag on your.
I did. I drew a flag.
And put it in there.
Staked it right there. Yeah. So,
is everything broke? Everything doomed?
There's still a little hope, but I know I'm not winning.
Did you have Florida on the other side?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so you're 1 for 2.
Yeah.
You got a little bit of hope tonight.
Maybe. Houston's tough. Their defense is tough.
Houston's really tough.
Yeah.
We've gone over a lot of different things. I did want to mention this to you. Your team-themed debit cards are so much fun. I don't think people understand that whatever your favorite team is, University of Utah or, the Jazz or Utah Hockey Club, as these logos come through America First Credit Union, you can get them stuck on your debit card.
You want to see what I got in my wallet?
Yeah. Oh,
look at that.
I got the Drum and Feather.
wow.
Yeah.
That's a good-looking card, too.
It is.
Yeah. And I love our other cards that we have. The hockey card that came out this year is just super cool. We've been doing Jazz affinity cards for the last couple of years. We have RSL cards, debit and Visa card. We got a Raiders card. It's just really cool to be able to put your passion in your wallet and spend how you want to spend. And you're reminded of your fandom every time you pull that card out.
And if you show up to the Bees game coming up tomorrow, home opener, you're going to be walking into America First Credit Union Park. I mean, it's going to be really cool. The square that you guys have set up there,
Yeah.
I know they've spent a lot of time in making sure that people not only just enjoy the game, but the whole atmosphere surrounding the game.
There's a lot of buzz, sorry, but there's a lot of buzz around this. It's coming. Yeah. The Reno Aces are in town. 6:35, I think, is first pitch. Weather's going to be mid-60s. Hans, you're going to go out there?
I'm going to be out
Check
there.
it out. So dress for just an awesome time. And America First Square has a lot to offer. We're very proud to be able to partner with the folks out there in South Jordan at that daybreak thing. There's just awesome things that are coming, and we're proud to be a big part of that. Being a member, you get some discounts. When you go in, you get some discounts on concessions. You get some discounts on merch. I could be teasing that there could be a Salt Lake Bees team card coming out in the future. And, you just get benefits every time you use your card.
So out there at the Bees Park, if I use my card, my America First card, which I've had for about 15, 16 years,
Love it.
I'm going to get some perks.
Yeah, 10% off concessions within the ballpark. Outside doesn't really apply. 10% off your purchases inside the official team store at the ballpark. And there are obviously going to be some exclusions, but, now's the time to get the new logos and the new branding. It's really cool. You can get early entry I
love this stuff. All just for being a member of America First.
So good. And here's one thing that I really love is you get half-price lawn tickets on Wednesday night home games.
Wow. This just keeps getting better and better.
That's a great deal for a family who, sometimes the kids don't want to sit in the seats. They want to, sit out and enjoy the grass. So that's a cool perk. And there's more stuff coming.
This stuff's cool, and I want people to understand, whether we were talking about the Leonardo, the museum that's downtown, and being able to get in for free with an America First card.
First Wednesday of the month, get in for free, up to 10.
First Wednesday of the month. So, there are benefits to being a member of your credit union, and America First makes it really convenient. And you're not going to find anybody that's got more convenient locations, too. I'm actually leaving the show and headed right out to our Saratoga branch, and I'm going to be refining on a car because almost 3 points I'm saving.
Yeah.
On my America First loan right now. So I'm actually refining today.
That's
So
awesome.
Thanks for that, Dave.
Yeah. We hope that you and your wife have a good, positive experience. We'll take good care of you.
Oh, I know I will. That's why I've been around for as long as I have.
How about this? One time, Hans, you were on vacation.
Yeah.
Dave and I were hanging out. I finished a HELOC application in the middle of the show, got approved, and got my roof replaced.
That's crazy.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you can do. Now you've got your car refied. It's so simple. It's so fast.
Look at you doing business with the show, Dave. I mean,
it was fun to see Scotty be the master multitasker. He was just taking care of business on both ends. It was awesome.
It was really cool.
oh, he's like an attorney.
He is, yeah.
Take information in both ears.
Yeah.
Hans and Scotty, and talk out of both as well, too. Hans and Scotty, this is 97.5. Hey, go to AmericaFirst.com. That's AmericaFirst.com. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The wheel is loaded, and it's time to talk some sports. This is Sports Roulette with Hans and Scotty on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. And make sure to join Jake and Ben coming up tomorrow. They will be live at Peach Window and Doors, 2940 South 300 West in Salt Lake City. PeachBuildingProducts.com is the website, or you can join Jake and Ben coming up tomorrow. All right, up against it a bit, so let's get to it. Time for another edition of Sports Roulette. Lloyd, let's go ahead and fire up that wheel.
These dudes can run.
All right, Hans, I know you spent a lot of time on the treadmill. What's your, have you ever figured out your mile time?
Yeah. Like my
Absolute best. All time. Do you remember?
no.
Okay.
No.
So
I've ran some hard miles though.
I bet. Alan Bishop is the strength and conditioning coach for the University of Houston basketball team. And if that name sounds familiar, he was actually a really good football player at Utah State and then got into the strength and conditioning world and now is the strength and conditioning coach at University of Houston, this team that outlasted Duke down the stretch. Well, in their off-season workouts, he had, at the very last day of their off-season workouts before the season started, he had everybody on that team run the mile. And the average time of that team in the mile was 5 minutes and 19 seconds.
They ran it as hard as they could?
They ran it as hard as they could.
A 5:19 mile is
5:19 average.
Complete insanity.
The best time was Cordelius Jefferson, 6'3", 196 pounds. He ran it in 5:07. The slowest time, 6'9", 260 pounds, Cedric Lath ran it in 5:45.
That's incredible.
By the way, look at these dudes on the last day of their. Those dudes are yoked.
They conditioned those guys crazy. Well, the commitment's paying off, man. They're playing in a national championship tonight.
And frankly, they just outlasted Duke. And they've done that to a lot of teams this year. Down the stretch of games, they're just stronger and faster.
They turn on in the second half.
And they turn it on.
Watch, Florida will have the lead tonight. Houston will turn it on and get the win.
Yeah. Would not surprise me at all.
Florida is, what, a 1.5 point favorite tonight?
I think so. The last time I saw it was about 1.5.
I'll pull it up. It is Florida 1.5 still. Over-under's 140.5. Ooh, that's a good number. 140.5 is a good number.
I don't know if I'd touch that one.
Yeah.
By the way, the over just barely hit in that Duke game, too. I think it was 135, and it ended up being like 137.
Oh, yeah, because we were talking about that on Friday.
I said take the under, and sure enough, the over hit. So shows you how much I know.
Yep. That's why we don't play the ponies, kids.
Why we don't. It's entertainment purposes only. They only tear down casinos to build bigger ones.
Who do you got tonight? And this is incredible, too. You know, you got your 2-1 seeds. They're both 35-4 on the season. You know, your records line up. Who you've beat. You beat the who's who. It's like you do have the one thing we know. This tournament has identified the top two teams.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to go Houston. I just think they're battle tested. I think they've just got this swagger, like nothing's going to faze them. No matter how bad things go, they'll be fine. They'll figure out a way to get it done. I just that kind of moxie right now, and plus defense travels. And I'm at a point now where I would not bet against Houston at all. All right, Hans and Scotty, one more, Lloyd. Let's go ahead and spin it.
Will he stay or will he go now?
Tell you what, Hans, there's a little bit of smoke out there about Yegor Damon returning for another year at BYU. I, frankly, would be shocked, but hey, you know what? When you get a kid who loves where he's at, loves the setup, and according to multiple reports, BYU has offered a very, very lucrative NIL deal. So if you can make a good chunk of money and be at a place you love and welcome in all the recruits that BYU's bringing in, including the number 1 overall recruit, that's pretty tempting for a guy. So who knows? Maybe you will see a completely loaded BYU team coming back next year.
I still put the odds really low.
I do too. But again, a little bit of smoke out there that Yegor may return.
All right, let's look at this. Number 1 overall pick last year, $10.5 million first-year salary. Number 2 pick, 9.3. Number 3 pick was 8.4. You get down to the 10th pick, 4.5. Let's say Yegor goes number 13. His pay scale would be first year salary at $4 million, second year 4.1, third year 4.3, and your fourth year options obviously jump 49%. So let's say that BYU's got him at 5.5. But the signing bonus, what are the?
I don't think there's. I think that's your number.
That's your number.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the NFL does the signing bonuses. I don't know.
The NBA doesn't do it like that.
Not that and I may be wrong on that, but I don't think so. The only thing, I think BYU can certainly give him more money next year than he would make in the NBA. But then you've got to ask yourself, okay, the NBA, I'm going to get at least 3 or 4 years of that number. And if I start my NBA career, and if he's really good, it gets him closer to that second contract where he'll really make the money if he's as good as advertised. So there's no doubt. If you're looking just short term, BYU can match what Jaeger would make next year in the NBA. But you also understand you're signing a 4-year contract, that fourth option, you're going to get at least 3 years of that guaranteed. So let's say that's $12 million or $13 million. You're going to get that definitely in the NBA next year. And then you also start the clock so you can get to that second contract. But, hey, if he's having a great time, if he loves the coaching staff, he loves everything else, and he wants to make a run at a national championship, I can understand why he'd want to come back. It's probably not the best financial decision, but kid's young. He's having a great time.
I don't know why this leaves me a bit speechless, because this is where we're at in college sports, where you can actually pay a kid to even think about it.
I know, right? Like, this would be such a no-brainer before, but now it's like, I got to think about this for a bit.
But if you're BYU, why not just sit down, sit at the table, and say, what do you want?
Yeah.
What's it going to take? Because what's a national championship worth?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, frankly, just this last year, what was the amount of publicity that BYU got last year? What is that worth? It's a big number. And imagine what it's going to be next year when you have AJ and the rest of the crew coming in, and you bring Jaeger back, and you find a way to bring Richie Saunders back. That team right there is already considered a title contending team.
It is, and I don't think you can put a number on it. It's in the tens of millions.
Yes.
If you're talking about just sheer marketing, I played for you that AJ DeMonza audio from the McDonald's All-Star game where AJ's sitting there talking trash to teammates about, I don't know about you, but all my games are sold out next year. Like, he's talking about being sold out at the Marriott Center.
Yeah.
All my home games are sold out.
And that's
not a ticket available.
Yeah. And that's a place that seats 17,000 or 16,000, whatever it is now.
Yeah. And that's his point of trash talk too, which cracks me up.
Yeah.
Because, they're giving him a hard time about, he's like, let's talk about the Big 12, man, playing Arizona. You kidding me? And they're like, well, Arizona was this and that. And he's like, well, I don't even know what you're talking about. All my games are sold out.
Yeah.
How's that sound to you?
Hey, make sure to win big on Wednesday. It'll be another edition of Win Ticket Wednesday. This week, we're giving away tickets to the Counting Crows coming in concert August 21st at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. Don't miss that show. Get tickets now at livenation.com or listen to The Zone all day on Wednesday for your chance to win. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.